Stanley? The little alien perched on the edge of a stone wall beside a quiet bus stop, gazing dreamily at the fluffy white clouds drifting lazily across the sky. He kept squinting up, searching for the familiar shimmer of the galactic shuttle that was supposed to come for him. But so far, the only thing gliding across the vast blue heavens was a tiny human plane, its propellers spinning fast as it looped in a graceful circle before continuing on its way. Next to him sat another traveler, an older alien lady with soft bubblegum pink hair piled elegantly into a twist on top of her head. She was calmly knitting a scarf with strands of every color in the rainbow, her needles clicking together in a gentle rhythm. To any human passing by, the stop would have looked completely ordinary, just another quiet roadside bench. But in truth, it was the only bus stop on Earth secretly visited by the Intergalactic Space Fleet, serving as a pickup and drop-off hub for visitors from faraway worlds who came here to spend their holidays among humans. Stanley had just wrapped up his week-long trip to planet Earth, a short but exciting cultural exchange meant to help him understand human life better. For 7 whole days, he'd walked among Earthlings of all shapes and sizes, the old and the young, and even the furry ones with wagging tails and 4 little legs. He had joined them in their games, tossed frisbees at the park, splashed joyfully in the sea, and sampled all sorts of strange but delicious foods. It had been a delightful adventure, but now the time had come to return home to his cozy planet, where his mom and dad would take care of his laundry and cook his favorite dinners. Ah, how nice it would be to be back home again. The bus, however, was running late. Stanley didn't mind much. It was peaceful sitting there, listening to the soft clicking of knitting needles and watching clouds puff and stretch across the bright blue sky. He slipped on his headphones, placing one earbud in each ear. During his stay, he had discovered something Earthlings called K-pop, and ever since, he'd been completely hooked. When his favorite song began to play, Stanley couldn't resist miming the choreography, using his fingers to mimic the quick kicks, smooth spins, and dramatic poses. Eyes closed, he nodded along to the rhythm, lost in the music. 3 minutes later, as the song ended, he struck his final pose, his fingers forming little heart shapes. But instead of the roaring cheers of imaginary fans, Stanley opened his eyes to see a flash of gold, a long yellow spaceship lifting off in a cloud of pink mist. His bus! It was already humming to life, ready to float up into the sky. Through one of the windows, he spotted the pink-haired alien lady settling comfortably into her seat, her knitting safely back in her lap. Before Stanley could even wave properly, the ship vanished into the cottony clouds above. "Oh no!" Stanley cried, dashing forward, arms flailing, but it was no use. The ship was gone. He'd missed it. With a deep sigh, he tugged out his earbuds and placed his hands on his hips. His dad was always saying he lived half in this world and half in his imagination, and now Stanley could see why. "If my antennae weren't screwed on," he muttered, "I'd probably lose those too." He scanned the schedule on the bus sign and groaned. The next shuttle came once every standard hour. But that was by 40.6 time, the time system of his home planet. With all the time distortions between galaxies, that meant the next one wouldn't arrive for another 4 Earth weeks. His parents wouldn't even notice he was late until then. "Ooh, silly time dilation," Stanley mumbled, shaking his head. His mom had told him to pack a transmitter so he could call home in case of emergencies like this, but he'd brushed it off. Those things were heavy, noisy, and way too old-fashioned. Earth phones, on the other hand, were amazing. They had games like Angry Birds. Why would anyone need a transmitter when they could play that? So he sighed, shrugged, and plopped back onto the wall. There wasn't much else to do but wait. To pass the time, he tried everything he could think of. First, he counted the drifting clouds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then he spotted a trail of ants carrying a chunk of lettuce across the pavement, marching in perfect order like a tiny parade. He started counting them to 1, 2, 3, 4, until he ran out of ants to count. And then, when even that game got old, Stanley simply sat quietly, staring into the endless blue above, wondering what to do next. Stanley sat on the wall for quite a while, swinging his legs and fiddling with his thumbs, trying to pass the time. But after what felt like forever, he decided that waiting was far too dull. So, with a deep sigh and a stretch, he hopped off the wall and began to wander. He ambled through the park, strolled past the tennis courts, and made his way toward the local leisure center. From there, he wandered by the cinema, crossed the busy main street, and followed the road down to the seafront. The salty breeze tousled his antennae as he watched the seagulls gliding and dipping gracefully through the golden afternoon light. Children were laughing, their hands sticky with ice cream and paper cones full of salty chips. A man led a pair of patient donkeys along the sand, letting little toddlers ride on their backs, while proud parents took pictures. Stanley smiled as he passed a donut stand, breathing in the warm, sugary scent. He wrinkled his nose and held his breath a moment later as he walked by a seafood stall selling fish sticks and crab shells. He wasn't supposed to still be on Earth. Not really. But standing there surrounded by laughter, sunlight, and the gentle crash of waves, Stanley couldn't help feeling grateful. Maybe missing the bus wasn't so bad after all. By the time he reached the end of the promenade, the sky had begun to turn pink and orange, the first hints of sunset coloring the horizon. The glowing signs along the pier flickered to life, reflecting in the rippling water below like 1,000 tiny stars. And that S, when he saw it nestled between a fish on chip shop and a candy store, stood an arcade. A huge neon spaceship hung above the entrance, bouncing slightly on a spring as though it were about to launch straight into the night sky. Stanley stared up at it, his eyes widening. The glowing ship was the same soft blue as his mother's own craft. He felt an unexpected warmth in his chest, a little spark of homesickness mixed with comfort. The rest of the building glittered with color. A smiling alien in bright neon raised its hands in greeting, while glowing planets and stars stretched across the walls. A cheerful electronic tune hummed from inside, spilling out through the open doorway. Above it all, in glowing letters, were the words Intergalactic Arcade. Stanley's face lit up. "This place feels just like home," he whispered. The more he looked, the more familiar it felt, almost like a little piece of Zelkon 6 tucked away on Earth. With a carefree shrug, he let the last of his worries melt away. So what if he had 4 whole weeks before the next bus? Earth was full of wonder, and this seemed like the perfect place to spend his unexpected stay. Pushing open the door, Stanley stepped inside. Immediately, he was surrounded by light, sound, and color. Kids were zooming along virtual racetracks on pretend motorbikes, cheering as they crossed the finish line. Coins clinked as players tried to push prizes off ledges with penny machines. Others were making Pac-Man gobble up glowing dots while tiny ghosts chased him across the screen, or helping a little pixelated frog hop safely across a busy road. Stanley stood quietly for a while, watching it all unfold with wide eyes. The laughter and bright music made him feel warm and content. For a moment, he forgot all about time and buses and space. Then, a delicious smell drifted toward him from a diner tucked into the corner of the arcade. Following his nose, he slid into a red leather booth. Moments later, a man with a twirly mustache and a Star Wars cap appeared, dropping a paper plate onto the table. "Aliens eat free," the man said with a wink. Stanley beamed from ear to ear. It wasn't often humans noticed him, after all. He barely reached their knees, and most people tended to overlook things they didn't believe in, but this man clearly believed. One look at his sci-fi shirt and the glowing arcade decor, and Stanley knew this was someone who understood. On the plate sat a thick, steaming slice of pepperoni pizza. Stanley devoured it in seconds, licking the cheese from his fingers before eagerly accepting a second slice, and then a third. When the last players finally left, the man cleaned up the counters, switched off the flashing screens one by one, and turned down the lights. "Stay as long as you want, little dude," he called cheerfully before locking the door behind him. And just like that, Stanley had the Intergalactic Arcade all to himself. He wandered across the sticky carpet, exploring game after game. His first stop was a basketball machine. He tossed the balls one after another, quickly breaking the high score with ease. Basketball was one of his favorite sports back on Zelkon 6. His planet's national team, the mighty Comets of Zelkon, were practically legends. The mighty Comets of Zelkon had recently defeated the Jupiter Dribblers to win the legendary Milky Way Cup. That memory gave him an extra burst of confidence as he moved on to the next game. He tried his hand at a puzzle challenge next. Colorful blocks of all shapes and odd sizes tumbled from the top of the screen, and Stanley's goal was to stack them neatly before they reached the bottom. He focused hard, his small green hands tapping furiously on the buttons, trying to fit each piece perfectly into place. When he finally cleared a level, he gave a little cheer and darted toward the next glowing cabinet. This time, he jumped into a racing game. A swirling rainbow road stretched before him as his tiny race car zoomed around bends. He grabbed glowing mushrooms that gave him bursts of lightning speed and dropped slippery banana peels behind to slow down his rivals. His first few tries weren't perfect. 6th place, then 5th, then 4th, and 2 third-place finishes. But finally, after one intense round, he crossed the finish line in 1st place. Stanley jumped up and did a little victory dance, spinning in a circle with his arms in the air. When the final score appeared, the machine spat out a long, fluttering string of paper tickets. Stanley gathered them up, grinning proudly. Maybe tomorrow, he thought, he'd trade them in for a prize, perhaps one of those funny pens with a fuzzy troll head on top. But now, the excitement was wearing off. A great yawn escaped his mouth, and his eyelids began to droop. What a day it had been! A whole adventure he hadn't planned, full of laughter games, and pizza. His eyes ached a little from staring at the bright screens, and his antennae were drooping from tiredness. He needed a bed. But where could an alien find one? In an arcade? Stanley wandered around, peeking into the red booths by the cafe and patting the sticky carpet thoughtfully. Neither looked very comfortable. Then his eyes caught something glowing warmly in the far corner. A claw machine, shimmering with golden light. Inside was a mountain of plush toys, soft, round teddy bears with button-eyes and squishy felt noses, all piled together like a sea of cuddles. "Perfect," Stanley whispered, smiling sleepily. "That will do nicely." He scampered over, climbed into the prize chute, and wriggled his way up through the narrow tunnel until he popped out into the middle of the stuffed toy paradise. Stanley stood poised at the air hockey table, antennae tilted forward in total focus. The puck zipped toward him, but he was ready. His paddle struck with perfect timing, sending it ricocheting across the glossy surface. Ping, ping, ping. The puck bounced back and forth in a blur of light before slamming into the goal on the opposite side with a satisfying clunk. Each victorious hit fed a lazy spiral of paper tickets from the slot beside him, curling into a neat pile at his feet like a growing ribbon of success. With every win, Stanley's grin widened, and when he defeated the last player in line, a girl with a determined look and a fast swing, he let out a triumphant whoop and broke into his now famous victory dance, spinning in little circles and waving his green arms above his head. After the final match, he plopped down on the carpet cross-legged and counted his tickets carefully. After 8 long hours of non-stop gaming, his total came to 75 new tickets. That made exactly 100. 100? Stanley muttered, baffled. After all that. He scratched his chin. So many games, so many wins, and he wasn't even close. At this rate, it would take him 10 whole days to earn enough for the transmitter. That was practically forever. He shuffled back to his booth, ordered a slice of pizza from the kind mustached man, and sat there chewing thoughtfully. There had to be a faster way, some kind of strategy that would help him earn more tickets. He stared around the arcade, mentally calculating every possibility. He thought about how long each game took, how likely he was to win, and how many tickets each one usually gave out. But none of it added up to an easy solution. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Stanley noticed the part of the arcade he hadn't explored yet, a dim, dusty corner in the very back. It looked abandoned, almost forgotten. Maybe that's where the old or broken machines were stored. Curiosity tugged at him. He tiptoed over, blinking as his eyes adjusted to the shadows. The bright, colorful glow from the main arcade didn't quite reach here, and everything looked frozen in time, covered in dust, like it had been waiting 100 years for someone to notice it. There, in the farthest corner, stood a machine draped under a faded gray sheet. Stanley gave it a tug, and a cloud of sparkly dust burst into the air, making him sneeze 3 times in a row. When the dust settled, he saw what looked like a game. A platform with speakers, flashing panels, and buttons arranged in a circle. Right in the center was a big pink button with the words "Start" glowing faintly on it. "Well," Stanley said with a shrug, "nothing to lose." He hopped onto the platform and pressed the button. Instantly, the machine gave a low hum. A disco ball above began to turn slowly, scattering flickers of light across the walls. The speakers let out a few curious boops and bleeps, warming up like they were waking from a long nap. Then, one by one, the spotlights around him blinked on red, blue, green, gold, until Stanley found himself standing in a full-blown mini-disco. And then the music started. A familiar melody burst from the speakers, one that made Stanley's antennae perk up instantly. He knew this song. It wasn't just any song. It was his favorite K-pop hit. The one he'd listened to every day since he'd first discovered Earth music. The screen flickered to life, showing a digital dancer performing along to the rhythm. Stanley's eyes sparkled. "Oh, this is my game," he whispered. The dance pad beneath his feet lit up in perfect time with the beat. Stanley followed the on-screen dancer, stepping, twisting, and spinning in sync. Every move, every slide and shuffle, every dramatic pose. E nailed Italiano. Messages popped up on the screen. "Amazing! You got IT? Style level. Galactic." Stanley was unstoppable. The rhythm coursed through him as if the music were written just for his alien soul. His feet moved like lightning. His antennae bounced to the beat, and his imagination painted a picture of a packed stadium filled with fans chanting his name. He wasn't just Stanley anymore. He was a K-pop superstar, dazzling the galaxy with every perfect step. When the final note hit, he struck his signature pose, fingers forming tiny hearts, and the machine rewarded him with a long, fluttering cascade of tickets. 100. Eyes wide with joy, Stanley scrolled through the playlist on the screen. More K-pop, he decided, and started again. He danced to every song the machine had, fast ones, slow ones, and even a remix that made the lights flash like shooting stars. Before long, the once dark corner of the arcade had transformed into a dazzling disco of rainbow colors. The rhythm drew curious onlookers, and soon a small crowd gathered, their faces glowing in the pulsing lights as they watched the little green alien dance his heart out. Word spread quickly. Kids began calling their friends, and soon the entire town seemed to be crammed into the Intergalactic Arcade. People pressed against the windows, cheering and clapping. For the first time ever, humans were seeing a real alien, and not just any alien, but one who could dance. Phones flashed as people snapped pictures and filmed videos. Stanley, lost in the music, didn't even notice he was too busy nailing a flawless spin and a perfect jump split. Within hours, the clips were everywhere online, shared under the hashtag #AlienDanceKing. Each flawless performance sent another wave of tickets spilling out of the machine to 200, then 400, then 600. The piles grew higher and higher until they brushed against his knees. When the last song ended, Stanley hopped off the platform, panting and smiling as the crowd erupted in cheers. People hugged him, laughed, and took selfies. And Stanley, ever the showman, now made little hearts with his fingers, his signature move. Finally, when the crowd's excitement shifted to a new player, eager to try the dance machine, Stanley took a deep breath, steadied his wobbly legs, and straightened up proudly. Dusting himself off, He gathered up his mountain of tickets and began marching toward the prize counter, his heart thumping with pride and anticipation. A mountain of crinkled tickets overflowed from Stanley's little arms, forming a colorful heap that brushed against his chin. "Well, well, superstar," said Mustache Man with an amused grin. "That was one show-stopping performance. Looks like you might just have enough for the grand prize." Stanley's antennae twitched with excitement, his eyes gleaming. 1,053, he declared proudly, letting the pile of tickets fall onto the counter with a soft, rustling sound. The man gave an impressed whistle. "You did it, champ!" He reached up to the very top shelf and carefully lifted down the shimmering Martian transmitter. After rummaging through a drawer, he found a pair of AA batteries, popped them into the device, and handed it to Stanley with the reverence of presenting a royal crown. Stanley accepted it delicately, as though it were the most fragile treasure in the universe. A warm, glowing feeling spread through his little green chest. He had done it. He'd really done it. He'd won the ultimate reward. With trembling fingers, Stanley turned the dials, extended the antennae, and pressed the largest button in the center. A low hum filled the air, followed by a crackle, and then a familiar, loving voice came through the speaker. "Stanley, sweetheart, is that you?" Stanley's face broke into the widest grin. "Hi, Mum. I missed the bus." A gentle sigh came from the other end. "Of course you did," she chuckled softly. "Not to worry, darling. Do you need me to come get you?" Stanley looked around the glowing arcade. Kids were still dancing under the neon lights, laughter echoing between machines. A girl with springy curls turned toward him, smiling and motioning for him to join another round. He looked back down at the transmitter, hesitating for a heartbeat. "I think I'll wait for the next bus." Mum sighed softly. "I made some new friends, and I kind of want to stay a little longer, if that's okay." "Of course it is, sweetheart," she replied warmly. When the call ended, Stanley tucked the transmitter gently into his hoodie pocket, patting it like a keepsake. Then, with a happy bounce in his step, he ran back toward the games, where laughter, music, and bright lights awaited. That night, when the arcade lights dimmed and the last player had gone home, Stanley climbed into his cozy spot. The claw machine nestled in his mountain of teddy bears. The soft glow of sleepy lights shimmered above him, and the arcade, now spotless and silent, seemed to hum with contentment. A few fluttery butterflies of happiness danced inside Stanley's tummy as he took deep, drowsy breaths. Gradually, the butterflies stilled, and his body melted into the comforting fluff beneath him. His belly was pleasantly full of pizza, and his arms and legs felt deliciously heavy after a day of non-stop dancing. The little alien let out a satisfied sigh. He was tired, very tired, but happier than he'd ever been. As his eyelids drooped, a sleepy smile crept over his face. Maybe, he thought dreamily, I should miss the bus more often. The once booming dance machine now rested quietly in the corner, polished and powered down for the night. Only the disco ball remained spinning lazily, casting silvery ripples of light across the walls and floor. The shimmering reflections swam softly, like moonlight gliding over ocean waves. Stanley dreamed of swirling galaxies and glowing nebulae, the light patterns flickering gently over his closed eyes as he drifted deeper into rest. Glow-in-the-dark stars twinkled faintly on the ceiling above him, while the soft hum of the air conditioner filled his ears with a peaceful lull. Everything was still. Everything was sleeping, and so was Stanley, curled up around a plump teddy bear, his tiny chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Tomorrow promised more fun, more games, and more laughter. But for now, it was time to dream. Feel how light and open your mind becomes, now free to wander wherever it wishes. The dream world is like a great, endless playground for your imagination, filled with glowing swings, gentle roundabouts, and glittering slides where your thoughts can dance and play. When you drift into dreams, your mind expands, growing brighter and more wondrous, filling the night with stories, laughter, and beautiful magic. And here's a little secret, one that very few people know. It's something I'll share only with you. When we fall asleep and step softly into the realm of dreams, we are never truly alone. There are kind, gentle spirits who live among the stars and the moon. The asterisk dream spirits, asterisk. Each night, when darkness falls, they glide down from the moonlight like threads of silk, shimmering softly as they descend to greet every dreamer. They wait for you as you drift into slumber, ready to take your hand in theirs, giving it a gentle, comforting squeeze. They guide you safely through the dream world, walking beside you as you explore. Asante? It's a wonderful thought to have a friend who stays with you even in your sleep, leading you through the secret places of your dreams. The dream spirits whisper kindly, asterisk, what would you like to dream of tonight? And since the dream world is your very own playground, a place where imagination rules and anything is possible, you can answer however your heart desires. Maybe tonight you'll climb a tall, ancient tree and rest among its branches, surrounded by the tinkling sound of leaves that shimmer in the moonlight. You might listen to the soft song of a nightingale, or the tiny orchestra of crickets playing below. Or perhaps you'll ask the dream spirits to take you somewhere magical, a world of spells and stardust, where you can learn to cast charms and soar through the sky on your very own broomstick. Below you, the clouds spread out like an endless ocean of fluffy marshmallows, glowing softly in the moonlight. Maybe your heart will take you to a asterisk dream zoo asterisk, full of extraordinary creatures. Bunnies, puppies, and kittens with fur so smooth and soft, painted in every color imaginable: lilac, emerald, sapphire, and gold. They're ULL meet animals no one in the waking world believes could exist, but in dreams they live, they play, and they smile at you. And do you know why that's possible? Because your mind is powerful, a magical universe of its own, rich and bright and filled with wonder. In the world of dreams, anything your imagination creates can come alive. Your thoughts are like stardust, spinning whole worlds out of nothing at all. So now, let your eyelids grow heavy. Feel your body melting deeper into your warm, cozy bed. Let yourself drift slowly into peaceful sleep as your mind begins to float away, light as a feather toward the glowing world of dreams. The dream spirits are waiting there, their faces glowing with gentle smiles. You can feel the warmth of their soft hands as they guide you forward, They give your hand a friendly squeeze, your sign that you are safe, that you are loved, and that the adventure is about to begin. Walk beside them now. Let them lead you through the dreamlands, through jungles thick with emerald leaves, where colorful creatures peek out to greet you, past floating castles built entirely from clouds, down rainbow bright rivers that shimmer and sing as you swim through them, and to quiet lakesides where tiny raindrops fall in rhythm, sounding like soft, magical music when your journey through the dream world feels full and beautiful. Remember to whisper asterisk, thank you, dream spirits. Asterisk, and when you do, they LL, smile and whisper, asterisk. Thank you, asterisk, right back, because they feel lucky to walk with you too. Now, let your eyes close completely. Let your eyelids fall soft and heavy. Let every part of your body, from the crown of your head to the tips of your fingers and toes, grow warm, calm, and sleepy. Your body rests, your mind floats, and your dreams unfold. In this peaceful world, anything is possible. Good night, dreamer. Sleep well and let your imagination soar.